Hello again and welcome back. My name is Tom Nelson and this is a continuation of the Diabetes Control 6 Steps to Gaining Complete Control Over Diabetes course. This is video lesson number 8, part 3, and we're going to talk about how lectins work. So in the last lesson, you learned that all foods contain lectins, if they're, that is, foods that are plant-based. Some are beneficial, some are neutral, and some are detrimental. For example, even very small amounts of lectins of the castor bean could be a very deadly poison. The lectins of uncooked kidney beans can cause very serious food poisoning-like symptoms if you eat them raw in the hard state without soaking them and cooking them. And there is no known pathogen when they examine the condition. So grains, dairy, legumes, and plants in the nightshade family contain large amounts of potentially toxic lectins. So there are many other foods that contain lectins in lower amounts that are less toxic. You eat them every day and they really have no noticeable effect on you whatsoever. Wheat is the only food that can produce nervous system responses because of their lectins, and one of a few that can alter your behavior and induce a high. Wheat is an appetite stimulant. When you eat wheat or foods that contain it, it's more difficult to stop, and that's why many snack food companies add wheat into ingredients of snacks that normally wouldn't contain it. You will tend to overeat. You eat the food items that contain the wheat. So unfortunately, it stimulates overeating, and non-wheat foods as well. So if you eat foods that contain wheat, you're not only going to overeat that food, but whatever else is there as well. So people do not eat wheat 400 calories less per day than those that do eat wheat. So it triggers a cycle that causes a euphoria, followed by a withdrawal. When people stop eating wheat, they actually go through withdrawal symptoms just like they would from alcohol or some form of drug. It distorts the neurological function and it causes addictive effects. Blood type O individuals are particularly intolerant to weak lectins. So lectins have a very specific shape that act like a key. The key fits into certain cell structure that has the same identical shape. In the last video, we talked about the insulin receptor, and that's what they're talking about here. Each of those recessed or projecting areas, the receptors of your body cells, have a specific key or lock configuration. So only whatever's supposed to dock on them will. It has to be an exact match. So whenever a key of a specific lectin comes into contact with a receptor that has a corresponding shaped lock, like it does with insulin, it engages and it opens that lock. Unfortunately for insulin resistance, it doesn't cause the gate to open to allow glucose to enter. So this occurs throughout your body's arteries, its glands, and its organs. Every life form, every plant or animal, fungus, and others, all have cell membranes that contain carbohydrates that either project from or are recessed into the cell's membranes. They all have those receptors. And lectins have a magnetic-like property. They're attracted to other lectins. So the key-lock interaction disrupts the membrane, especially of the cell that is part of it, and it damages the cell. It initiates a cascade of immune and autoimmune events, inflammation in particular, that can destroy that cell, or at least cause significant damage. There are a certain number of carbohydrates that are capable of deactivating certain toxic lectins. They bind to the key, and they prevent them from linking up to other corresponding lock, so they don't work. One example is glucosamine. Glucosamine is specifically designed to deactivate wheat and wheat lectins. While there are other various substances that behave as deactivators to these toxic lectins, none of them are capable of protecting the body from all of the lectins that are present. Some damage still will occur if the lectin is present. So to prevent toxic lectin damage, do not eat the foods that contain those toxic lectins. Soy and wheat in particular, and the oils from soy and wheat, as we mentioned in the last video. The pasteurization of milk and dairy reduces the lectin inhibitors, so they're considerably more harmful if you drink dairy. Grains, especially wheat and wheat germ, soy, peanuts, dried legumes, that means uncooked, dairy, especially if they're grain-fed, quinoa, rice, buckwheat, oats, rye, barley, millet, nightshades like peppers, potatoes, eggplant, and tomatoes, and corn are the highest in content of toxic lectins. So when the cells are damaged or destroyed, your body sends in the white cells, which are your immune cells, to clean up the debris, which causes inflammation because that's how they deal with things like that, and they destroy the dead cells. So shedding of the cells damages the cellular membranes in the small intestine, and it disrupts the bacterial and hormonal balance in the intestines. So they promote the overpopulation of candida. Anything that reduces the population of the beneficial bacteria will usually increase the population of not only candida, the yeast fungi, but also parasites. So lectins do not break down very easily. They put up quite a fight. So no process has been found to date to remove the toxic lectins. They're not impacted by your stomach acid or the digestive enzymes. However, the sprouting process of foods, like you'll see in certain bread products, like Ezekiel breads and Essene products, they do destroy the lectins. However, it does not remove or alter the gluten, so be aware of that. The lectins bind to the intestinal wall and they damage the cell's membrane. So they alter the permeability of the gut and pass through into your circulatory system. You remember we've talked about leaky gut that's caused when you don't eat a proper diet that's high in vegetables and fiber, and that can cause leaky guts, but these lectins can do it all on their own. They cause alterations in the intestinal function and may cause colitis, Crohn's disease, celiac, sprue, IBS, which is irritable bowel, and increased gut permeability. So the primary site for lectin reactions is the intestinal tract. The bloodstream, especially the red blood cells, are damaged, and the brain, the glands, and the organs are all subject to attack. So genetic engineering of food crops is particularly problematic because they're modified. The actual genetic engineering process is accomplished by splicing lectins from one plant into another. Like wheat, corn, and soy are the most genetically altered of all the crops. Certain anti-inflammatory medications or other drugs will then increase the gut permeability, which will allow those lectins to pass through into your bloodstream. And that's when the wars really begin. So wheat, rye, barley, oats, buckwheat, beer, malt vinegar, and foods that contain them are high in gluten, which is gliadin, which causes other serious conditions. The elimination of certain carbohydrates can substantially reduce or eliminate, cure, many serious conditions, including celiac disease, IBS, and Crohn's. Lectin damage is subclinical. That means that the damage is cumulative, with no symptoms, and it can go on for many years until the damage becomes significant. So lectin intolerance is not an allergy, because the person may be lectin intolerant and not produce any antibodies. The allergy tests, including blood tests, skin tests, and saliva tests, will not contain any antibodies that will suffice to diagnose an allergy, because it's the antibodies that are usually used to identify an allergy. So the lectin proceeds to cause damage to cell membranes throughout the body. So now proceed to lesson number 8, part 4. We're going to talk about gluten. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Please pay it forward and share what you learn with others. Thank you.